Welcome to the Luke Macias Show. We had massive victories all across the state. Texas is more red than ever, and it's not just one demographic that moved our way. It's not just one county that moved our way. We're going to break some of those details down for you, things that you should know and be encouraged by, and what the implications are for our state moving forward after a very, very, very good election night. Let's get to the show. Donald Trump won by 14 percentage points in the state of Texas. Somebody tweeted out, New York is closer to being a red state than Texas is to being a blue state. And you have to understand that national Democrats still came in and spent $200 million trying to move this state into the blue or purple category. Ted Cruz was reelected by 2 percentage points. 2 percentage points in his last reelection, and today is currently holding a 8.5 point lead over Colin Allred, an 8.5 point lead statewide over Colin Allred. So from Ted Cruz moving from 2 to 8.5, and from Donald Trump moving from 6 to 14 percentage points. That's an 8-point shift on the presidential ballot. It had large implications statewide. So let's talk about some of those. Donald Trump didn't just win massively with Hispanic men from the exit polling that we have seen. He didn't just move with Hispanic women. He didn't just move in the suburbs. He moved across the board. Donald Trump lost Tarrant County, which is the only red urban county in America. The only red urban county in America is Tarrant County. And Ted Cruz lost it in 2018, and Donald Trump lost it in 2020. Barely, but he lost it. And he won it by 6 percentage points last night. Major, major victory. Donald Trump lost Williamson County, the big suburb just north of Austin, Round Rock, Georgetown. Last night, he won Williamson County. Fort Bend County is just south of Harris. It is the most ethnically diverse county, maybe in America. It's like 25% Indian, Asian, 25% Hispanic, 25% Black, 25% white. It is, I don't know the exact, but it's basically fits in these 4 categories. It's an incredibly ethnically diverse county. And Joe Biden won that county in 2020 by 10 percentage points, 54 to 44 percentage. Okay? 10 percentage points. Last night, Donald Trump came 1.5 points away, 1.5% away from winning Fort Bend County. And if you go just north of that to Harris County is not just the largest county in Texas, it's larger than some states east of the Mississippi. This is a county that Republicans have been losing by double digits multiple times. And Donald Trump not only cuts his loss in there by like 5 points, we actually go down and win district judge races. We almost won the district attorney's race. Incredible numbers. So it wasn't just suburban that moved back into the Republican camp in a stronger way. It was also an urban shift. And it wasn't just an urban shift and a suburban shift. There was a massive rural turnout that came out. And then it wasn't just rural and urban and suburban, but let's go to South Texas. Guys, first of all, I'm going to start with talking about a very important race, Abel Herrero's House District in Corpus Christi. I personally have been watching this race very closely for the last several months. It was something that it was a district that I really felt conservatives had a great pickup opportunity. When redistricting happened, Republicans made a strategic decision to basically shore up all the incumbents, therefore not really leaving many swing districts. And so they just basically said, let's kind of put our majority at 85, 86, and just keep it here for the next decade. At least we know we can pass bills. We just can't pass constitutional amendments. I don't think that was the right decision. I did criticize it at the time and have still continued to kind of criticize that ultimate decision. I do think that there's a lot of opportunities left on the table. Steve Kennard's race in Collin County is a perfect example. That district could have been a little more red very easily. And instead you have a situation where the surrounding Republican districts are solid red districts. And then we lose that district by 3,000 votes last night. And all you would have to have is that all of the other Republican seats in Collin County are just a teeny bit less red to shave votes into that district. Maybe we pick back, we take Plessa out with Kennard in 2 years. That's a Plano district. 3,000 votes we came from flipping it. But I want to go down to House District 34. Abel Herrero has been the state representative there for a long time. He was a state representative when my dad was in the legislature in 2007. He retired this year. His House district, Donald Trump lost by 10 percentage points. Greg Abbott lost that district by 4 percentage points. Denise Villalobos, the Republican candidate, ran and defeated Solomon Ortiz, who is a local legend. His family are local legends in Corpus Christi. His dad served in Congress and political office for decades. He served in the House before. He had 80% name ID when he started running this campaign. Denise did not just beat him by 1 point. She didn't take this historically blue district and barely pull it off. She won by 10 percentage points. That is a 20-point flip. And guys, that's really what we saw. Joe Biden won Cameron County on the border, South Texas. Joe Biden won Cameron County by 15,000 votes in 2020. That's a 13% margin that he won Cameron County by. That's against Donald Trump. And Donald Trump beat Kamala Harris in Cameron County last night by 3%. A 16% shift. Guys, if you start pulling South Texas counties, you just see a plethora of 15, 10, 20, 30 point shifts. Don McLaughlin picked up Tracy King's seat, which is Uvalde, down to Laredo. That seat has been held by Democrats for 33 years. Don crushed it. Webb County, that's Laredo. Joe Biden won that county by 20 points, a 20-point margin. Trump was down, last I checked, by half a percentage point. And I don't know because some of the election day was coming in, but he was only down half a percentage point in South Texas, there in Webb County. Republicans are making massive inroads. And in South Texas, it's even more so a Trump shift. I've talked about this before, but John Cornyn in 2020 outperformed Trump in urban and suburban areas, but Trump outperformed Cornyn in South Texas. And yesterday, Trump outperformed Ted Cruz pretty consistently in urban and suburban counties. But in South Texas, it was even greater. It was an even greater divide. You had even more all red Trump voters. And you also had them voting Democrat for a lot of the rest of their ballot. They were voting for a Democrat state senator, a Democrat state rep, a Democrat U.S. senator, a Democrat congressman, and Donald Trump to be their president. And that might confuse you. You might say, who is that person? Who is that Hispanic voter who's voting Democrat, 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 Democrat? I want Trump in the White House. And that person is somebody who believes that Trump's message actually resonates with their way of life. And they are somebody who has voted Democrat their entire life. It is a major hurdle for them to convert. They first convert usually from being a Biden voter or a Clinton voter to a Trump voter. That's what we saw. There was already a big shift between Clinton and Biden. So when I give you these numbers, Hillary Clinton did better in these South Texas counties than Joe Biden by a mile. So there were a bunch of people that voted for Clinton. 4 years later, quite a few South Texas Hispanics said, you know what? I actually think Trump's message resonates with me. Now I'm voting for Trump. And then Republicans worked really hard. So in 2022, a lot of those Trump converts became Republicans. They were just a Trump voter. Then they became Republicans in 2022. And so we solidified the gains in South Texas. And I will admit my own pessimism going into this cycle. And if any of you talked to me in the week leading up, I will admit something I said privately, is that I felt like the South Texas shift was going to largely maybe plateau is the way I would describe it. And if any of you talked to me privately, I would have already admitted this to you in the last week to week and a half. So I will tell you, I will admit my own fault in just a minute after we go to this break.
America is at a crossroads. Now, more than ever, Texas must step up and lead the country. We don't have time to mess around. The only way to save America is with a strong Texas. You and I know this, but so do the enemies of life and liberty. Therefore, you and I have no choice but to stand up and fight. I'm Sarah Gonzalez, and to the enemies of liberty, I say, come and take it.
So here's what I wrongfully pessimistically predicted. Since 2016, 2018, 2020, 2022, we've seen this South Texas shift take place little by little by little, led by Donald Trump. And I thought that we were going to largely see those gains plateau. We would have some inroads, but it wouldn't be enough. This is what I predicted about a week out from the election. And most of the polling, if you were looking at polling in South Texas, would have told you that they're not moving enough, that our previous large shifts won't become additional large shifts. Morgan LaMantia, which is a race we'll talk about in just a second, spent like $10 million on a re-election. The woman spent as much as some places spent on their U.S. Senate race, is what she was spending for a state Senate seat in Texas. And her family was positioned to get a casino. They want to legalize casinos, which will be another cash cow machine for all these Democrats and continue to try to turn Texas blue. And so her family put a lot of money in because they're trying to make sure they're in a good position for the casino that they want to open up. So they're dropping $10 million into a race. And with Vicente Gonzalez, who unfortunately kept his seat from Mayra Flores, there was so much money being spent in South Texas that I thought Democrats had put enough effort in to kind of halt our gains. I just thought, okay, the gains we've made, we're going to kind of continue to hold these recent converts, but we're not going to make a ton of new converts. And boy, was I wrong. Now, I want to reiterate, though, what I just told you, which is that in a lot of these counties, the massive shift that happened was a Trump shift that now Republicans have to go convert into Republicans because they voted Democrat for a lot of the other positions on their ballot. And now we have to go sell Republican values and governance to those people, not only under Trump, but also at a state level and a local level. And that's on us to do. But let me tell you what it did lead to. Morgan LaMantia, who spent $10 million on her reelection, lost to Adam Hinojosa. And that is a massive deal. And here's why. If a couple Republican state senators decide to kill a bill in the Senate, they can. Okay. So it used to be before Dan Patrick came in that you needed Democrats. You needed a Democrat to agree with your bill to get it to the floor. And he changed the rules to make sure that as long as the Republicans supported the bill was going to come to the floor. And that's great leadership. Well, we now have a little margin, which means we can shave one or two Republicans. But the problem is, if three Republicans get together, two Republicans, they can go, hey, you don't want that bill? I don't want that bill. I don't want to verify. I don't want medical freedom. I don't want vaccine choice. I don't want these issues that matter. So there's some real moderate Republicans that will sometimes squish on certain issues. When you get somebody like Adam Hinojosa, who's a strong conservative in the Senate, it gives the moderate block of senators even less leverage. Okay? And so your more centrist Republicans need to work harder to then kill conservative policy, which is why Hinojosa is a huge, huge upgrade. And that only happened because Trump shifted a ton of people, and then then Adam and these other candidates worked really, really, really hard to make sure that as some of these people were shifting to Trump, they're banking some of those guys into Republicans down the ballot. So you did still see Adam and Cruz and these people underperform Trump, but they were overperforming where they had been in the past. Huge, huge victory for Republicans. Adam Hinojosa in Senate District 27. Don McLaughlin in Uvalde, Denise Villalobos in Corpus Christi, all South Texas pickups, while taking back the Williamson County Sheriff's race. Again, these suburban counties we have to have under Republican governance. And I would like it to be under conservative Republican governance that's cutting your property taxes and actually showing people what Republicans do when they're in charge. Tim O'Hare is a great example of that in Tarrant County. But we need to make sure they stay red so that you can have a Republican county judge and a Republican district attorney and a Republican sheriff showing these growing areas of Texas what it means to be governed by Republicans. Huge, huge victories. I cannot understate the level of shift that we saw in the state of Texas last night. And it was at a time when moderate rhino Republicans were doing everything they could to thwart this. You had a bunch of moderates that were ticked that Abraham George was the chair. And so they were just complaining for the last several weeks about Abraham George as state party chair. And Abraham George didn't get distracted. He just stayed focused on making sure the Republican Party was doing what the Republican Party needs to do and working to elect as many Republicans as possible. You had traitors like Steve Allison in San Antonio and Jeff Wentworth in San Antonio. Jeff was one of the first rhinos we scalped when I got into politics in 2012. The guy used to let Planned Parenthood office out of his office for their lobby days, and he was a Republican. He lost in 2012. Steve Allison just lost his primary. Both of those guys went and endorsed the Marxist Democrat Jordan Swift against Mark LaHood, and Mark LaHood won. He won by 5 percentage points in a district that Abbott won by 4 percentage points and Trump won by 2.7 points. So he grew the margins from the past election cycles. You have moderates like that. Adam Kinzinger moved to Texas. This guy's a disgraced former congressman, fake Republican who moves down here and then says, hey, I'm going to campaign for Colin Allred. I'm going to campaign for Kamala Harris. I'm going to campaign for Democrats across the board. Nope. Texas is going more red than ever. And these moderates are still holding on to that little bit of power they have. And that is a perfect segue into the race for the Speaker of the Texas House. We cannot make America great again. We cannot make Texas even greater without reforming the Texas House. It's just not possible. Our current Speaker and his regime and any of the other people that come out of that regime to try to be Dade Phelan 2.0 as the next Speaker believe in the House being the bottleneck for conservative policy. And it needs to stop. So here's the math. There are 88 Republicans in the Texas House. And on December 7th, they are going to get together and select a candidate to be their choice for Speaker. That person needs to get 53 votes to win. There are 62 Democrats, but Ana Maria Ramos is running as her own speaker candidate, and I think you will see 3 to 4 Democrats to 5 or 6 or 7, but I'm going to assume only 3 other Democrats actually support her, just to be conservative. So if she has 3 people with her and herself, then that leaves 58 Democrats that can guarantee either their vote for a Dade Phelan or a Brad Buckley or whoever is the Dade Phelan 2.0. I want to do as much as we can to keep as much of the current status quo going as possible. Okay? So the Democrats can bank their votes for a non-reformer, either Dade or Dade Phelan 2.0, whoever that is. And then they need to find 18 Republicans who will cut a deal with Democrats and go to the floor and vote for this uniparty leadership. That would be disastrously destructive to our state, to our party, and to the hopes we have to advance conservative policy next session. We will still advance conservative policy regardless of who the speaker is, but Dade will be able to cut a lot of deals and kill a lot of policy if he and his top cardinals remain in power. So you, Texans, need to not rest on the victories we have, but you need to immediately begin to reach out to every single Republican lawmaker you know and say, hey, we need to unite to make sure that we actually reform the Texas House of Representatives. I had David Cook on the show. If you have not listened to that episode, I would recommend that you go listen or watch it, because you will hear what I think he lays out, which is a path to unifying everybody and bringing them together. And we could see a couple other people come into this race. But the question is, what are you going to do to unify Republicans? Because the current leadership has done nothing but divide. They're divisive because they literally work hand in hand with Democrats. That is divisive activity in the state of Texas. So Dade Phelan has to figure out if he has 18 votes. Will Metcalf, his chair of House admin, sent a letter out today to members going, hey, send your rules changes to me. Like he's the one making rules changes, right? They're trying to act like they're in charge. That's kind of their whole MO. Mike Toomey, his chief of staff, who's a lobbyist, makes millions lobbying, came out the other day and said, we have 96 Republicans working groups on policy, acting like that means they're in a good position to still remain in charge of the Texas House of Representatives. And they're not asking anybody to endorse them. They only have like 3 or 4 or 5 endorsements of people that have just said, I'm voting for Dade. But they're just basically saying if somebody will show up in the same room as I do, then maybe it's kind of like they support me. But they know right now that their plan is to get a majority of Democrats and a small group of Republicans to try to keep their power. And it's the same thing that people like Steve Allison just did in San Antonio, where he said, well, if I can't have the power, I'm going to team up with Democrats in my district and try to give this district to the Democrats. And it didn't work. And voters are smart enough to know that in order for Texans to unify, they need to stop cutting deals with Democrats. They need to stop trying to empower Democrats. They need to end this shared power agreement they have, and instead bring Republicans together around a set of priorities and principles and conservative policies that actually make Texas better and make the lives of Texans more free. And so that's where I think we are headed as a state. But it's only if we conservatives continue to come together and make sure the political class understand that the voters that showed up and made Texas more red just yesterday are also demanding that we continue to advance conservative policy in this state. May God bless you, and may God bless Texas.